Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com back once again, and it's time to take a little trip to hell in a Cell 2021. That's right, we're going to talk about every single thing that happened on tonight's show, so strap yourselves in because this is what happened at WWE Hell in a Cell. Just the one pre-show match to talk about around this sort of time, which is kind of standard right about now, and it's Mandy Rose versus Natalya. Now, Natalya, of course, is one half of the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, and she's accompanied by her co-partner, Tamina, whereas Mandy is accompanied by Dana Brooke. But this is a straight-up singles match. The other two don't get involved at all. It's a tale of one-upmanship. There's quite a lot of grappling, there's quite a lot of mat work, and Mandy kind of hangs in there with Natalya for quite a lot of it, but then Natalya, the superior technician, she manages to gain the upper hand, lock Mandy in the sharpshooter, and pick up the massive pre-show victory. Now on to the first match of the main show, and it's our first Hell in a Cell match as well, with the SmackDown Women's Champion Bianca Belair taking on the challenger Bayley, in a feud based around laughter and laughing. Fairly early on in the match, Bayley ties Bianca's braid to the bottom rope and charges with a running knee attempt, but Bianca uses her hair as a tripwire, sending Bayley into the ring steps. At one stage, Bayley bites Bianca, and Pat McAfee has clearly never seen biting used in professional wrestling because he is horrified on commentary. Bayley wedges some kendo sticks between the ring and the cell wall, but Bianca slams her through them. It may have been a Bayley to belly, I'm not quite certain if it was a stolen finisher, but it was a nice move anyway. Bayley goes back to the hair strategy of tying Bianca's braid, this time to a chair, but it backfires because a chair's not tied down to anything or secured in any way. It just allows Bianca to have the chair close by at hand, and she uses it to block Bayley's second running knee attempt, and now Bayley's knee is very weakened. Bayley comes back again after for a while trying to escape, but of course the cell door is locked, but Bayley gets back into the match, wedges Bianca in a ladder, and hits the rose plant, but it hurts her own knee, of course, in the process, delaying the pinfall attempt and allowing Bianca to kick out at 2. Bianca then makes her comeback, hits a nice running back senton onto Bayley, who is lying down on the ladder, and then the KOD into the ladder. It looks really good, a very nice move there, and that is easily enough to end the match and pick up the win for Bianca Belair. She is still the SmackDown Women's Champion. A nice start to the show. I don't think it needed particularly to be a Hell in a Cell match. It could have been any sort of no DQ stipulation, but you could kind of say the same for any recent Hell in a Cell match of the modern era. So I'm not going to judge it too hard for that. It was still a good match. We get a post-match backstage interview with Bianca Belair where she says that even though she did enough to get the win, Bayley still kicked her ass out there and she'll never forgive her for that. Bit of a weird direction to take with this promo. Does that mean the feud isn't over yet? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. That is followed by another promo segment, this time with Bliss in the playground, and she says that Shayna Baszler better watch out in their match later on because when you knock on Bliss's door, you don't know who or what is going to answer. Ooh. The next match is Cesaro versus Seth Rollins, and Rollins jumps Cesaro during his entrance, but he's been jumping Cesaro for fun since WrestleMania, so Cesaro is ready for that and takes control as the match officially begins. Rollins, though, fights back, focusing on Cesaro's eye, but Cesaro digs deep and comes back himself, even at one stage taking off Rollins' glove and shoving it into his mouth. He also kicks the glove into the crowd, or into the Thunderdome screen section, I suppose, while Pat McAfee shows off his soccer knowledge, his football knowledge, on commentary, talking about Switzerland's win over Turkey earlier today. Rollins regains control and tells Cesaro that he hasn't earned a damn thing, but Cesaro kicks out of various signature moves. Rollins can't keep him down, even with the Falcon Arrow. No one kicks out of the Falcon Arrow. Cesaro avoids the stomp and gets the swing, followed by the sharpshooter, which he then transitions into a crossface, and then transitions into another sharpshooter, and then starts brutally stomping on Seth's arm several times before going for another swing, but Seth pulls him into a flash roll-up and gets the 3. Very strange decision there. It was a good match, and it certainly got the time to develop and play out properly, but I just wonder why they've given Seth the win here. Is Cesaro not the guy then? Have we just got to accept that? I hope he is the guy, but I'm starting to worry. Next up, we have Alexa Bliss versus Shayna Baszler. Shayna is interviewed in Gorilla on her way to the ring alongside Nia Jax and Reginald. Nia says, oh, maybe you need some good luck for this match, and then prompts Reginald, who goes to kiss Shayna's hand, and obviously Shayna's just not having any of it and slaps him and then makes her entrance. The match gets underway and Reginald distracts Bliss immediately, allowing Shayna to take control of the match, but Bliss fights back, and every time she looks at Shayna, Shayna keeps like shaking her head as if she can't meet Bliss's gaze. Reginald is the same as well. He jumps up on the apron at one point and then jumps down and shields his eyes because he doesn't want to look in Alexa's eyes. It's weird. I mean, it's weird. All of Bliss's matches are weird, but yeah, no, it's also another weird one, everyone. Shayna works over the arm, but again, Alexa stops her by just staring at her until she lets go. Then Bliss stares at Nia on the outside, and Nia is totally hypnotized by her because she doesn't look away. And then, seriously, Bliss mimes swiping her arm, and Nia does exactly the same motion at the same time, like as if she's a voodoo doll, she's in like a trance, and she takes out Reginald, who's standing next to her. Honestly, this all happened. Look at the images that Owens putting up. It happened. Back in the ring, Bliss slips out of the Kirifuda clutch, hits the Sister Abigail on Baszler and the Twisted Bliss from the top, and picks up the win. And yeah, this was it's really cool. Really cool match, guys. Match of the year. It was weird. Next up, it's time for Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens, and Owens is dominant early on in this match, but the story here is that he's still selling the effects of those 2 Nigerian nails that he suffered at the hands of Commander Aziz on Friday Night SmackDown. So every time Owens gets a bit of a head of steam going, his breathing slows him down, and Zayn is able to fight back, at one stage hitting a big dive over the top and hurting Owens' wrist upon landing on him, so he's now working over the wrist. Owens also can't breathe very well. It's all going in Sami's favor. Owens, though, fights back very resiliently and goes for the swanton off the apron to the outside, but Sami rolls out of the way and gets a near fall back in the ring. Then they just start hitting each other. Like, they kind of brawl a bit messily, but it works because it's Owens and Zayn and you kind of believe the hatred, and Sami even ends up bleeding from the mouth. They head to the outside and Kevin Owens gets the stunner, but Sami just beats the count before the referee reaches 10. More brawling from Owens, but Sami manages to kick him throat first over the bottom rope and then nail him with the haluva kick and pick up the big pinfall victory. Sami gloats to Michael Cole on the outside, while back in the ring, Owens is quite worryingly telling the referee that he can't really breathe very well. It's all selling, don't worry, but it was quite convincing, actually. This match, like most of the matches on this show, was perfectly acceptable. It just felt a little bit long. Owen, who's editing this video, made a very good point that it seems like they're trying to fill time, possibly because, of course, they took Rey Mysterio versus Roman Reigns inside Hell in a Cell off this show and just had it on SmackDown instead. So yeah, a lot of backstage promos, a lot of long, elongated matches on this show, and, you know, it made for a bit of a weird vibe, in my opinion. Next up, Rhea Ripley defends her Raw Women's Championship against the Queen, Charlotte Flair. Charlotte snatches the title from the referee as he's holding it up and uses it to distract Rhea, landing a cheap shot before the bell. Then the bell rings and she gets a really quick roll-up, but only for 2. Charlotte is pretty dominant early on in this one, working Rhea's leg, presumably for the figure 8 later on. But it's actually Rhea who gets her submission locked in first, but Charlotte rolls her into the turnbuckle, then hits natural selection and tries to use the ropes for leverage, but Rhea kicks out anyway. Ripley avoids the figure 8 attempt and Charlotte hits the Andrade back elbow, but it's only enough for 2. They then brawl and Rhea hits the Riptide, but it's too close to the edge of the ring and Charlotte manages to get her foot on the ropes, so they head to the outside and Charlotte kicks Rhea's knee into the ring steps, furthering the damage on that leg. Back in the ring, she gets the figure 4 locked in on Ripley, but Rhea manages to make the ropes and they head back to the outside where Rhea flips the cover of the announce table and hits Charlotte in the face with it, and they just immediately call for the bell. They're like, well, that's a DQ straight away. It's a really strange ending to the match. They continue to brawl anyway back in the ring and Rhea hits another Riptide and kind of wins the brawl and of course is announced as still the Raw Women's Champion while Charlotte is the winner of the match by DQ. But honestly, I don't really think this makes either woman look that great. They talk a lot of trash to each other as Rhea poses on the ramp with her belt, and I guess at least her reign's still carrying on, but again, it doesn't make her look like the best champion. And finally, the main event of the night, Bobby Lashley defending his WWE title against Drew McIntyre inside Hell in a Cell. And remember, if Drew loses, he cannot challenge for the belt again while Lashley is champion. The pair head straight to the outside of the ring and bash each other into the cell wall and so on. And Drew at one point suplexes Bobby into the fence, and Bobby has a pretty scary looking landing, but he seems okay. Drew is dominating, so MVP slips Lashley his cane through the cell wall, and Lashley uses that to gain the advantage. Again, large portions of this match take place outside the ring with a lot of brawling and slamming and grinding into the mesh of the Hell in a Cell structure, the unforgiving Hell in a Cell structure. At one stage, they fight over the ring steps and Lashley uses them to ram Drew's head into the cell wall over and over. Then MVP feeds a kendo stick through the corner of the cell, trapping Drew inside of it, and Lashley just beats him down for a bit. In the ring, Lashley pours on the punishment with a chair and a kendo stick, and there's some huge welts on Drew's back, but Drew will not stay down. In fact, he fires up and hits the Future Shock DDT, but there's been a ref bump and there's nobody to count the pinfall attempt. Drew calls for the second referee outside of the cell to get in there and officiate the match, and hits the Claymore, and the new referee gets in the ring just in time. 1, 2, and MVP has followed the ref into the cell and pulls him out of the ring. But that means that MVP is now inside the cell with Drew, who beats him up and hits a Claymore, but Lashley sneaks up behind and applies the Hurt Lock. In desperation, Drew drives them both backwards through a table outside the ring, and both men are back on an even playing field, a very beaten up playing field. They get slowly back in the ring and Drew goes for the Claymore, but Lashley ducks it and then throws Drew off the apron through another table on the outside. Drew slowly gets back in the ring. Lashley goes for a spear, but Drew avoids it and gets a near fall off a backslide. He measures Lashley for one seemingly final climactic Claymore kick, but as he goes to charge, MVP is recovered on the outside, grabs Drew's leg, Lashley runs over and rolls up Drew to retain the WWE Championship. A roll-up finish in a Hell in a Cell match. Now, I don't want to knock the effort of both guys. They obviously put in a lot of effort in this match and took some very painful bumps, both of them. Fair play, full respect to both guys. However, ending a Hell in a Cell match with a roll-up doesn't really sit right with me. The stipulation has kind of been dying for a long time in the modern era, especially since the introduction of the annual Hell in a Cell pay-per-views, which made the stipulation rather arbitrary. But is this the nail in the coffin for the Hell in a Cell stipulation? Let me know what you think of that below, and in fact, let me know what you thought of this entire show. Anything you want to mention, chuck them in that comment section down there. Thank you very much for watching this video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic. Do check out our other coverage of this event and other events going forward as well, and stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.